To już jest 13. No i gra muzyka.
Panu zlecenie jest zrobione w 500, pieniądze nie radzi. A panu tam prowadzić? Albo znaczy chodzi o to, żeby zweryfikować, czy to jest wina urządzenia, czy...
Ja już rozmawiałem z Łukaszem Kozłowskim w tej sprawie i chyba wina urządzenia. Dokładnie to samo, co w Crealab jest.
Tak?
Właśnie będę pisał do second levelu, dowiedzieć się, czy to nie jest jakaś usterka, o której oni wiedzą i może mają jakieś remedium na to jeszcze bez dokumentu.
Cześć Marcin, ja mam pytanie, czy fakturka za program MS Windows 2010 Pro dotyczy też mnie? Aha, czyli dobra, czyli to jest do kompletacji. Dobra, to jest do kompletacji, okej, dzięki bardzo. Okay.
All right, guys. I hope everybody had a good lunch and ready for the second part. Okay, let's look a little bit closer into Thrive also again. As I said before, buttons are not very different towards the RIP product. You would see in a RIP center, you would see the same things, but not layout. You will not see a media manager. And you don't have swatchbook and configure color check, but the buttons will not be blue, but will be orange instead. So, but for the rest, the ripping procedure works exactly the same way. Now, if you want to edit certain thing on the file, I can right-click on there, open in Job Editor, or I can actually go to the blue symbol here, which is Job Editor, and then it will open up the job editor where we can do multiple things in regards to editing the job. Okay, so here's the first step. The first step is we already opened it in for the absence show color. So if I have multiple printers, you cannot change it to the printer. You would have to reopen the file for the particular printer. You can change the media if you want to. If you have like another media, you can change it here. Here it will tell you what the profile is built of. So this is a CMYK orange red plus one spot, a white, and you see that this is the ink setup that the printer is using. All profiles are on. I'll come to back to that in a minute. And I have a cutter selected, and if there's a preview cut path available, I will see it. Next step, preview and size. So very easy, you know, change my size into whatever it is, whatever that I want. Apply my size change. I can crop, you know, I can say, you know, I want to crop a certain area from the middle or on the top or anything like that, saying, you know, here my crop size should be, let's say 200 by 200, and you will see immediately the crop window appearing. I can move that around into certain areas, and then here I can actually position it right away where I want to. Rotate files, things like that. Here's an important thing. If you have PDFs, it will tell you one of all. If you want to go through the different pages, you can just step through this little arrow up and down. Be aware if you, for example, have looked at page number 3 and you then submit it, you've actually selected only page 3. So if you want to make sure that you want to have all pages, go back to one of all. Yeah, that's important thing. Patterns is that step and repeat thing. So which is default in Thrive, which you can buy extra for textile tools. So if I enable the step and repeat tools, you will see it repeats right away looking at my page size. Yeah, so it takes the width and the height and it does like this. Of course, I can say, you know, okay, I have 30 meters of file, and you see that it's going to build up my complete step and repeat. Now, for viewing, that is not really so nice, so let's make sure that we take it a little bit different. So now I have a 2 meter long file. I have the possibility to actually, you know, do a gap in between. So I can say, you know, let's put a 5 millimeter gap in there. And then here I can say, what does the color need to be of the gap? The first pixel, which is, you know, a darker color, but I can also say, put a white there. You have the gap here for horizontal. I can put another gap here if I want to. Vertical. Now the gap color is always the same. You know, I cannot have a horizontal in black and a vertical in white. You always have to be the same. And then, of course, I can do an offset. You know, the brick, like the bricks of a house, I can say, you know, predefined a quarter. Or, you know, I can do anything myself, saying, you know, I want to have like 40%. In this case, with the brick, you have brick or drop. And you can see it's either or. You can never do the both the same. So it is a drop vertical or a break horizontal. Yeah, so you cannot do both. There we go.
No, niech będzie, że dobrze.
Yeah, so you need to be aware of the fact is either you move it horizontal or you move it vertical. Yeah, that's the one way or the other.
The recording is stuck.
Thank you. Does it look okay now?
It's still stuck for me.
Okay. Is everybody else seeing a good screen on my job editor?
A przy tym jest wyżej.
Okay, let's continue there. Let's mute this one again. Okay. All right. Good. All right. So here you see the like the textile. Here you have your colorways. If I enable colorways, I go into a certain setup. Something was strange. So that's a good practicing. You see now that my actual file is on my job editor crashed for some reason. I already saw some difficulty building up, and now you actually see that, you know, here I have this busy file. I cannot do much about it. So let's move into my folder. where I have my Onyx installed. And go to my Onyx Drive 21, my work, my Epson, and you see there I have a busy file. Let's see if we can do something about that. Let's say buffered. Yes, so change it.
Oszukiwanie.
There we go. Now it's back there. Okay. Move back to the job editor. Take this file, see what happens.
Dobrze, że jest taka możliwość. Ale tak, nie do końca tak jak powinno być.
Rotate this one back so we have a clear view. It's okay. Patterns, talking about colorways, enable colorways. And something wrong there. Because it crashed. Let's have another one here.
Czyli co, zamawialibyśmy dzisiaj mimo wszystko komplet tych samych części, jak wyczekaliśmy ponad miesiąc czasu?
So we're looking at version 21.1 that is released last week. So maybe I have found a bug when I was doing the patterns. So come back there, patterns. You know, you do your step and repeat and things like that. Let's go to tiling. So if you go to tiling, in here I can decide, okay, how many of the tiles do I want? If I type in here, for example, 2, it actually divides it precisely up by 2. I can do 2 by 2. And here it is. It does not matter how big my file is or whatever. It just says, you know, I'm equaling it out towards 2 of the same tiles. I can actually go in here and I can see if I go to column number 2, it's exactly the same size. So here it is split equally there. Now I can also say, let's have a look here. Back, I can make 3, and I can go back to, you know, instead of having 1 tile. So now I can also move this part, you know, so I can move this actually around, and I can say I want custom tiles, or maybe I want more tiles. You know, if I can say, you know, if I do it up to 3, I can still move these around in however I want it. Yeah, so with this thing here on the top, you are making sure that you have an equal portion. With this case, I can actually move those tiles around. And now you, for example, you can see my column 1 is 96. If I want to, you know, I can change this value. You know, I say it needs to be, sorry, it needs to be 100. And if I go here 1, and I can now say, okay, let's move it into 100. And then my second tile, maybe, you know, 300, whatever it is. And then my third tile here is now like 109. So with this one, I can change it into what I want myself. On the top here, I can actually say, okay, this one equals it out. Okay. Now, of course, I can, in this case, I need to give an overlap. Yeah. If I want to make sure I want to print and I want to mount these together, I can say, okay, what is my overlap? Let's create a 20 millimeter overlap That means this overlap means 10 millimeters on this side, 10 on this side. No overlap here, no overlap there, and no overlap or on the top or on the bottom. I can put marks on. So if I want to do some overline laps there, I might say, oh, well, you know, not at the top, not at the bottom. I only want left and right. And I can do some zero line marks also if I want to. In here, which is basically new from 21, I could actually generate a tile map PDF. So in this case, it creates a PDF for whoever is installing this, so he knows where to go. So in this case, I can say, well, I want to make a page on A4 portrait. Do I want to have a logo? I can do none. There is already an Onyx logo on there, or I can have my own custom logo. Now I can say generate my tile map. It's going to put this in Onyx Drive 21 tile maps folder, but I can also, you know, create my own folder. I hit save. It is actually going to generate this PDF. Successfully created. Now there's also an option to do this at rip time. So whenever the file is ripped, it automatically generates that file. If I look at the file right now, I'm going to go in here. I need to go back to my Onyx Drive 21 and tile maps. There's my PDF. And now here it gives me a description of my PDF. So column 1, column 2, column 3, row 1. And it actually tells me here also which are the sizes of these columns. This PDF is interactive, so I can click on C1 or C2 or C3 and it jumps immediately to that page. And here it will actually show me also my overlap size. Yeah. So it's a nice tool for the ones that for customers that actually have installers and they are bringing it, you know, either emailing or putting it together with the actual job that they've printed. Now with this file, it's maybe not too difficult because they already see when they mount. But you can imagine if you know if you have more tiles and you have a blue sky, it's difficult to see well which part is which one. Now, of course, I can also have a label on there at the bottom where it says something about the tile, but that PDF tile map is a little bit more easier for especially mounters to use that. Now, I can actually say submit as separate jobs. What does that mean? That means that each file now will be separated as a separate job in Onyx. That means you cannot put them together. You cannot change anything after that tile has been generated. So I would not use it here. If I would submit this job, so I'm basically saying ready to go. Let's rip this file. And you will see in here, my file is going to rip. And you see I have my 3 tiles here. In my preview, I can actually see which one is which one. But also, if, for example, I have done this and I have saved it, it's in my buffered zone, then I can still, so right-click, I can go to Edit and I can go to Tiles. And then basically, I can turn these things on and off. I could say, look at that, I only want to print those. And now I only have these 2 columns. So you see I have this column 3 and column 2. So in that case, if you ever want to reprint, then you can better do it like this, because once you have submitted it as separate pages, then you're on all, you will get 3 files in your RIP and then you cannot merge them back together. You would actually have to open the complete file again. So select all. Ready to go. Now I can go back to my job editor and actually go back to tiling and say, well, you know, turn this tiling off. So in that case, I still have my my original files. I'll do color correction in a minute. Let's look at the finishing tab. The finishing tab has bleed and grommets, which are not not in Rip Center. Be aware. So bleed and grommets is in PosterShop and in Thrive, but not in Rip Center. What can I simply do? I can simply enable a bleed, and I can give a small extra bleed of, let's say, 2 millimeters on the side. Here I can decide, well, what does it need to be? I have choices for mirror. I can do a color, and I can do a duplication. So if I do a color, I can do like this. I can use my picker again and say, okay, it needs to be green or black or blue. It does not matter. Yeah. Normally, if I would create a canvas, I would actually say, my canvas, my wooden panel, maybe aluminium panel is maybe let's say 25 millimeters. Then I would actually want to create I don't want to have a blue. I want to create a mirror. The problem with mirror is that sometimes you get these funny effects because there's a logo there. You suddenly get, like, on your frame at the bottom, you get an extra logo. Here you see something funny. I would then use, instead of mirror, I would duplicate actually my file. So in that case, the pixel is just extended, so the colors stay a little bit more in shape. Yeah. Now I can actually say I need to have a trim box around it and some marks. So I'm going to say, okay, let's put a 50 millimeter space around it and put some marks on there so I know how to fold cut. Yeah. So now I've created this actual this canvas file. What I can do in here regarding marks, I can also add a tile outline cut path. So there is not a cut path in here, but I can say, okay, let's generate one within Onyx and make sure which one is it. Do I want to do this on the original image, or do I actually want to do it on the trim box? Okay. So if I add trim box, now you see here, it actually puts this on the trim box. So if I have a lot of these canvases that I'm printing and I actually have a possibility to cut them, I could actually print a couple of meters with these images on there, load it into my material, into my cutter, and cut these canvases out, and then start to finish. I can also add this print label in here. So if I would say enable, I actually have, I have a couple of things that I can already include. Yeah. So I can do an info. I can do all these about which profiles, or I can actually have a username. I can put an image in there if I want to have an image in my label, and I can also create a QR code. Now the QR code is just a QR code read or created by Onyx, and then I can say, okay, what information do I want to have in this QR code? So maybe I want to have the job, let's say the job name and order number and maybe a company name or something. Yeah. So in that case, I can click on OK. The actual print label will be added to this one. I can also now say, because that printer label is going to be at the bottom here, maybe I want to have a print label cut path. This is something that is new in 21.1. So here I can now say I want to have that extra cut label on my label outline. And I call it label outline. I can also give it a name of another cutting command, what you might, what your cutter might recognize. Depending on what your cutter might have a command for the kiss cut, then you can use that, or you can use a through cut. But in my case, I keep it as a label outline, and then when I actually say submit, I would now get this file with this extra label cut when I'm sending it to the cutter. You see here is now there's a piece behind it. You can actually not see that this is a QR code, but this is actually the label that is created there. Yeah. Now, one of the benefits is when I actually do these settings in my job editor. Let's open up my my job editor again. So I have all these settings regarding a canvas and a print label and a cut mark and a cut label for the actual QR code. I can actually now say, okay, let's export these as a quick set. So I'm going to say, okay, export this, and I'm going to call it, I'm going to put it on my desktop, and I'm going to just say canvas plus QR cut or something like that. Yeah, just give it a name what I know that I recognize from here. So I say, okay, this is good. Back to my rip queue. Now I'm going to go edit quick sets. It's like, oh, it's not, oh, I just saved it, but it's not there, which is correct because I have saved the parameters. Now I just need to make sure that I import these settings. So I go to configure printer. Correct. Something. That is my file. That is probably here. You see, that's one of the things also. If you have a file that is in a busy status, you see that you cannot open configure printer, for example. And that is my busy wine and cheese here. So I need to go again to my folder and clear this one up. Drive, where are we? There. And go to work.
Widelcem albo nożem.
And where is my wine and busy? Wine and cheese.
Maila sobie też załączę.
Make it like this.
Jakbyś miał tam jechać.
Now I should be able to. Let's go on there. Now I can go to configure printer. And now you will actually see that I have a import button here. So now I can go to import. Here's my canvas plus QR code. I can hit OK, import, and then I have a setting here, canvas plus QR code. Immediately you will see here that I have this input folder with canvas plus QR code. Yeah, so it's immediately there. So now if I go back to my drive here, now I can also see with my QR code that there is actually this QR code. Yeah, so in that case, I can very simply change that into a quick set. Now, I can also, when I look at the quick set and I click on this one, I can look at edit, and you will see in here in advanced, that is where the things are saved. So you can see here is my 25, my 50, and my marks. Yeah, and my marks are here. My tile outline, generate tile outline. Now, if it happens that my quick set, it turns out that my bleed is actually, my frame is not 25, but it's 30. I can easily change it in here and say 30. Click on OK. Click on OK. Click close. Now I have changed my quick set into a 30 millimeter. So if I would say here apply quick set again, and I would use my QR cut and use apply, it is actually calculating. It's going to calculate my file again, re-rip my file, because instead of the 25, I now need to add the 30 millimeters. Done. And you see now my actual bleed. So you can Of course, I can change it on the fly. I can also double click the file and change it here. But if I turn out that my quick set instead of the 30 should be 25, I can also change it on the quick set. And then every file the next time will come in will have that setting. Okay, let's go back to the job editor. Now, of course, it's always like, I have done this now on the file. I can basically easily say, okay, wrong, everything is wrong. This should not be a canvas or anything like that. It is actually, I'm going to say, okay,
Te linie przerywane są linie
apply
cięcia.
quickset. And I'm going to do default quickset, which is basically does not have any settings for the canvas frame or things like that. One other thing from the finishing tab is the grommets part. So I am able to put eyes on there. So I can say like this, and you see the marks there. I might see a little bit. Let's do like make them black so you see them a little bit more. Now, of course, you can decide I don't want to have them in my image. I want to have them outside my image. Yeah, of course, that's possible. I can also decide here I want to have this based on not on distance but on numbers. I can change that. But what I also can do, if I don't want to have them in my image, let's say I want to have them in outside my image, I need to go back to bleed. I actually need to create a trim box, but I cannot activate the trim box if I enable this one here. So I click on enable here. Now I can put a trim box of, let's say, 50 millimeters. Now, if I actually go back to my grommets, I can say place my grommets in the bleed area, and they will be outside my bleed area. I can still maneuver my distance here, but it's always calculated from the width of the page, the middle of the page, sorry. Okay, so you see, you will not get this one exactly at the corner. So remember, these are not cutting lines, they are grommet lines. I can change them, into shape, whatever I want. And I can go into style here, and I can also decide how is it built? Is it a solid line or not? How big is my actual grommet? Maybe it's 15. So I have created them a little bit bigger. Again, here I can do my marks also. I can set these on. I can have my print label on, things like that without any problem. Yeah. But just reset, everything is gone again. If you look at here at print, I can say hold for operate and submit, then it will be set to hold. Submit here is the same button as the submit here. Print setup here, I can do something and say, okay, what do you make a copy of the image? Delete my image, for example, after printing, things like that. Print on the rip and print on the fly, easy when you do step and repeat. When it comes in, it's easy when it already starts to work with that. Yeah. Two things about color. I have not mentioned the color correction, and I have not mentioned here my media profile. Yeah. So in Onyx, you will see here something where it says all profiles on. Yeah. So if I go in here to change profiles, you will see in this particular file, you see an sRGB used at perceptual images. Okay. Now that's my default. Let's open up another image that gives me a little bit more information. So let's open up my quality evaluation. That's always a good example. Okay. Now, of course, with color management, it's always like a couple of things that you need to think about. Color management, we not only talk about a printer profile. Yeah, we talk about a complete thing of according to what standard do I have to print this particular file, for example. Yeah. So that does not mean anything about my profile on my printer, but it's basically saying if I have a printer with profile A, now I need to print according to a certain standard. Is the gamut, how does it work with the gamut from this, the color range of this printer profile towards the gamut of the actual reference or the simulation? Well, you will see in Onyx that if you go to change profiles,
Słuchaj,
by
takie pytanie
default all
mam.
the
Czy
profiles are always
zgodziłbyś
on.
się na dokonanie
If I
przeglądu
go
na
here
przykład
to
firmy
change
Maki
profiles,
JW
you will see
143?
that my default every time you install Onyx is US web coded sRGB.
Tak.
Yeah. Now this is not really particularly a standard that we use in Europe, but one of the benefits is here. If I install anywhere in the world, I download Creative Suite from Adobe, it is set exactly at the same setting as this one.
I
Yeah.
dampery.
So
Dampery mówię, że mamy,
basically,
a
if the
kapto
people would
11.
say I'm creating a file on my computer in
zaraz ci dowiem
Illustrator,
wszystkiego.
I'm opening it up
Dawaj.
in the RIP, it uses the exact parameters. Now, of course, I always have the option to say use embedded profile when available. So if your customer or the customer of the customer knows what he's doing and you can trust him on the fact that he's using profiles because he knows what he's doing, then you're okay. If you have customers that don't have any clue of what they're doing with profiles, you might want to say, well, unclick this one and use the profiles that are set in Onyx. Now, in here, of course, you have a bunch of internal profiles, standards that we have defined. But for example, common in Europe use is like an ISO coded, for example. Here, an ISO coded V200, and I can set that one for both images and vectors. Where are we? Down here, ISO coded, and here it's always like people might want to, discuss, do they want to do sRGB or Adobe RGB? There's not really, from our side, there's not really saying, oh, you have to do this or you have to do that. In this case, I can click on OK. It says, hey, something has happened. You changed it. You would actually have to, re-rip the file because you have done a setting with a different profile, which makes sense. Yeah. Now in this case here, it's now at custom, and you see that here I can actually have my preset. If I would change this into a quick set, if I go here in the quick set, here, and I go to edit, and I go to change profiles, here I can actually, if I made a certain settings, I can actually go in here and I can actually say save as, and use my setting with a different name, so it will appear in my list. So in that case, I can create a quick set with a profile that is at ISO coded sRGB, for example. Yeah. So in that case, you can create your own settings. So that is the most important part of the color management. What you see here with the profiles is basically saying, according to what reference am I going to, within which color spectrum am I going to print this file? Yeah. So we're now saying, okay, I have a file on the printer, which is the file here behind. Now I need to be inside the reference of an ISO coded. Yeah. So and for example, what a lot of people have as a standard, the FOGRA standard, very known in Europe, where it is in the US, it's G7 standard. Well, FOGRA has years ago been established as a setting for offset. Yeah. And of course, if you're printing for people that are also printing their work in offset, so for example, you're doing stickers and labels, but for Coca-Cola, but Coca-Cola is also printing flyers and sheet fed offset and stuff like that. But it all needs to be FOGRA. Then, of course, you want to make sure that you adhere to FOGRA. What you are doing is basically limiting your color. The FOGRA standard has a lower, smaller gamut than, for example, an ISO-coated. The reason for this is that the people behind the printing press were simply not able to reach the colors that an inkjet printer would be able to do. So we said, okay, this is our standard. If you ever want to print with the inkjet, you need to make sure that my gamut is FOGRA, which is basically smaller. So people that own a machine with 6 or 8 colors, for example, with this Epson with an orange and red in there, if you do a FOGRA, basically you're making your color gamut way smaller than what the printer can do. Now, it might be necessary for the customer that the customer has, but if you're thinking about the fact that if it is a printer with orange and red, you probably want to have, brilliant, vibrant colors from there. So be aware of that profiling part there. If you trust your customers and you just use your embedded profiles, then you're fine. A lot of people are doing this because then they can say, well, I have used your file the way you have built it. I have not changed anything. I have not modified it. I just opened it up in my RIP and it says it uses the profiles that you have. So that is a part where I can actually do the change profile. Here's another tab called color correction. This is the thing where you normally say, okay, where you don't touch your settings. This is, in a way, if a customer starts fiddling around with here and he has to do a rerun and he did not remember what settings he has done here, then it could be difficult to regenerate the same file again. I would always advise you, whatever, when it needs to change, do it in Photoshop or whatever where the designer has been made it in, or but not in the RIP. Only if you really are aware of the fact that when you print certain colors, I just need to add a slight magenta for these type of files, and you know for sure what you're doing, and the customer knows what he's doing. Then I would say that it would be acceptable. But for the rest, I would be difficult, or I would be careful with this one. So you see, same thing for your contrast, same thing for your white and your white and black limits. I would not per se do that. Color replacement is something different. There you would be able to say, if I have a color, I can change it. Again, be careful, because if I would click here and I would sample a color and I would take this particular color, it only takes this color with this setting. So you see that it only takes it with this one. And there might be in this gradient, there might be a couple of spots where this particular ink recipe is used. And you can see here some of the white areas. There's where I have exact the same number, but not everywhere. Here it's completely different. So if it is a vivid color, or a certain percentage of a color, it's way easier to do that. Let me remove that. If I just want to make sure that I want to replace, this particular color here, I can click on this one here. Hold on. Sorry. I can click on this one. This is not a gradient or anything like that. It is this color, and now I can change. Okay, I want to have it in 100% magenta. And now it turns into my magenta. So gradients is okay. It's difficult. Solid colors are something completely different. Solid, or a solid could also be a 10% color or 20%, as long as it is not going to change from 0 to 5% and 3%, stuff like that. Now the other one is named color replacements. So these are like the Pantone colors. Yeah, so these are saying, okay, here when I click here, it actually pulls a list of all my Pantone colors used in this document. Yeah, so I have a Pantone Black C, and I can basically change it in here into a color that I want. I also have the possibility to go into swatch books. I'll show you in a minute from the rip what is doable with that one. But here I would be able to say, you know, I'm just going to say, okay, I don't have the black is 0%. So it's going to be a color like this, somewhere here. Don't know where the actual particular color was, Black C. Somewhere here. That's okay. But then you can at least, you're really changing the named color in this case. Now, what else do we have? We have a spot layer tool in this case. Okay. Now, let's go back here to that media. You can see here, I have a media profile that consists of a CMYK orange red and one spot, and the spot is white. So in Onyx, I can basically add a layer of this white. So if I go to color correction, I say enable the spot layer. If I have a media with not a spot in there, I will not be able to activate that. Yeah, so in this case I can when I turn it on. Well, important thing is if I look at in here in the information, of course I already have lots and lots of named colors. Yeah, so Pantone colors and everything is in there, and there's also some spot colors, spot 1. They're probably in here. Yeah, they already have some named colors. But for example, if I want to print this on a clear film with a white behind it, it needs to be a window film. I can actually go in here and actually say enable my spot. My spot channel is white. That's how it is called in my profile. And now I can say, well, what do I want to do? If I do a flood fill, it basically creates a complete white layer of ink on my job. I have not decided yet if this is going to be on top of my color ink or below my color ink. And this is only I've activated the layer. I have another choice. I can also say only the image areas. So you can see now everywhere where there's ink, and even if it is 1 pixel, 1 drop, it will put a white behind it. And I can also, with that white here, the problem is that sometimes the white comes a little bit outside your color. Therefore, I have this choke option. The choke option, I can go up. See if we see something. Oh, there we go. So now I have quite a lot. Let's do it like this. So now basically I'm putting the ink, the white ink, a little bit smaller, so it doesn't come out of the white area. You call that with the choke. And one other option that I have here also is saying not image area, but only I want to have non-image areas. So in this case, I'm only putting white ink where there is no dot. Yeah. Now, one of the things, of course, with what is probably the most convenient is your image area. Yeah, so you have white ink where you have an image. But for example, if you have a machine that has a varnish, you would maybe want to say here that I want to have a flood fill because I want to have a varnish over the complete image. Sometimes you have 3-4 spot channels. You have a varnish, you have a primer, you maybe have a white, you maybe have a silver ink, and all going to be used in a mix. Well, in Onyx, again, I can only do those 3 things. If, for example, you want to say, I want to have a certain area of my job being done with white ink, or then you need to create that in your design. So in your design, you then need to say, okay, I'm using a certain color for a certain file. So let's open up a job that I know that has some of these files in there. Let's have a look. Where are you? There.
Dwóch Afrykańczyków, South African, braci, 2017, założyli Africa Crypt i zniknęli z bitcoinami wartymi 3,6 biliona dolarów.
Okay.
Jest to największa kradzież kryptokurencji w historii. Nawet większa niż ostatnie te 2 biliony dolarów w Turcji. I bardzo dobrze. Są przeciwny tej kryptowalucie kompletnie.
Double click. Now I can see when I use named colors, it has a named color that is called white. So the designer has created something, a color which he called white. Now if I open up this file,
z czego się bierze kryptowaluta?
in the job editor, I can basically go look at it. I already have a profile that has one spot. If I look at color correction, I see that I have my CMYK orange red, and I have this white that is basically green. The green is only for viewing. The person that made this profile used the selection green. It does not mean anything. It just made green. It could be purple, could be blue. That's what you decide when you create the profile. Now, if you actually want to see if this reacts, you can basically put the slider aside and see if anything happens. Well, I don't see any green in here, so I know it is not there. Now, one of the issues here is that the named color that we used in this file is not recognized by Onyx. See, we see here we have a named color that is called white. Well, but if I look here at my actual spot layer tool, it is already white, and there's a small difference. It's a capital W. So now I need to make sure that a small W is recognized as the spot color. And be aware, because this is a little bit hidden in the software. If I go to printer media, I go to change profiles.
Tak naprawdę
now I go to
liczba
output.
gotówki się nigdy nie zmienia, chyba że są
Then I go to
ładowania,
spot
ale
channel
gotówka
replacement.
to gotówka, tylko zmienia właściciel.
And then I'm basically going to say my document spot color name
Tutaj jest tak, że tak naprawdę
is in this case white.
nie ma fizycznie nie ma pokrycia
Click on
żadnego.
OK.
Zbierasz coś, co jest warte coś.
Now it says, hey,
Ale nie ma ani funduszy
changed.
zabezpieczających. No tak jak teraz gościu 3,6 biliona.
process. So click on apply,
Szukaj wiatru w polu.
re-rip my file.
Jak
There it goes.
Co oni wzięli, skoro nic nie wzięli, bo tak nie ma? To co oni wzięli? Oni to
spieniężyli to.
spieniężyli to, tak?
No, bo to można spieniężyć, bo w tej chwili to jest coś warte.
Aha.
Good.
I każdy bitcoin,
Perfect.
każda ta kryptowaluta, ona jest coś warta i ludzie tym handlują. I póki to się...
Mogli to zrobić, tak? No bo najpierw coś dali.
There you go. So now you see that this actual color correction with that in here with my primary tools, now you actually see that my white is reacting, because now if I put that slider away, you see that I'm using less white ink now. So be aware of the fact that if that named color is not exactly the same, that you need to change that in there. Now I can also do this in a quick set. I can go to the same settings and give that name and save that quick set for a certain customer, for example. But that is something you need to be aware of, that is possible, that you might want to end up and say, saying, hey, this is not going to work. Now, at the end, when I click on submit, it's calculating my file for the actual print. In here, when I now go to edit printer settings, now I can decide where I want to be. Okay, so in here I can say, do I want the spot and then a color? So I first print white and then the color on top of it, or do I want to print the color and then the white on top of it, or do I want to have a mix? Of course, this depends on the printed driver that you have. If I have the new HP 700 with white, or the 800 with white, it is decided in the media settings. If you there select a media, it will already say, okay, how do you want to print, underprint, overprint, things like that. In some of the Mimakis, you can decide which layer you want to print first, and then you say layer 2 needs to be an underprint or things like that. Yeah, so that depends per printer drive, because every printer driver wants it different again. If I go to overprint, I do an 18 pass, for example. Yeah, so it depends a little bit what you want to do. There's also, if I have a mix here of color, I can do an 8 pass. A lot of times what you will notice as soon as you start to use white, metallic even more, but if you use metallic, the printer is going to be slow. They have to slow down because they cannot print at a high speed anymore. Where white to use is very common on certain media. Metallic is less common, but is still used. So that in the printer settings you can define what you want to do and how you want to actually print this. All right, so that's mostly about that part. Let's look at this swatch books. So swatch books, if you talk about swatch books, we normally talk about like say named colors or Pantone colors. Yeah, one of the things is that a Pantone color is not color managed. So a Pantone color has a CMYK and sometimes a CMYK orange red value that is being sent to the printer. So there is no influence of a quick set with maybe a certain setting involved regarding a Fogra setting or an ISO coated setting. Yeah, you can see here if I would actually create a CMYK in here. If I would say, I have 100% magenta with 100% yellow, so I'm printing in orange, you see that sent to the printer is this. It has not at all 100% magenta, but it only has 31. This printer has orange, so it's printing still with 51 orange and is using red for 85%. Yeah, so it makes a mix, and depending on the quickset that I have, if this, for example, would be a different quickset with a different ISO coated, this could vary. This number is going to be changed because it's a quickset with a certain setting for that particular output simulation, Fogra, ISO code, or stuff like that. Now, if you talk about Pantone, it's different. That is not color managed. Yeah, so if I go here to spot color, I can actually click on here and I will actually get the Pantone library. Yeah, so this is the internal, this is an original Pantone library. So in here, I can print and see if the color is good enough. What happens in a lot of times, the customer has been printing and Pantone 802C, this one, and on the printer that he had, it was always perfect. but now he has a new printer and it's a mess. The green is way too dark. Is that because of the fact that he might have printed this Pantone 802C wrong for years? Or is it the printer that is acting different? He has maybe new technology, or he has different media or things like that. At the end user who buys the product is always right, and he needs to have the right color, period. So what can we do? We, for example, take that 802C. I click on the 802C. This is what I'm printing. I'm printing to this printer with this media, blah, 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 blah. This is my device value. So this is what is sent to the printer. So it's a mix of cyan and magenta. And if you would take the original Pantone book, you will see these numbers appearing there. I click on OK, and now what you see is that I'm going to be able to print a variation of the recipe. Yeah. So this is the original. Now I'm going to change certain things. Certain things only to make sure that I'm going to be able to reach that particular color what the customer wants. In here, a few things what I can set. If you have a printer with orange and red and light inks, I can go 3-dimensional, and I even get more variations. If I would only have a printer with, CMYK, maybe light cyan, light magenta, I could also go 2-dimensional. Yeah. Now I have two options. I can actually print a visual swatch. So if I hit that, it is a profile but white. So do I want to, maybe I need to create this color with white. I click on the white, and it's also the white is going to be printed. In my case, I don't want that. I want without white. And then you basically see here that here's my file with all my different recipes. Yeah. So I print this one off, and then I actually go back to my swatch books, and now I'm going to say, okay, which one of the actual ones that I printed is actually the best. So I've maybe picked one with my color, with my customer, and said, well, that one is actually too dark. It needs to be this one. So now this is in 21 is new in the way that you do it. We always had swatch books, but now I can actually highlight this one. And what I can do now, I can say add to the print mode, and it will add this to the print mode. So every time I'm printing this color on this media with this printer, it will be changed into the new values. If I'm not completely happy with this one and I want to do a little bit more, I could also say set as source. Yeah, now look at this is 14, this is 58. If I say set as source, it now takes the new values that I found. I'm going to print again, and you see now it's all going to be a little bit lighter. So now I'm going to say, oh, this is the one that I want, and now I'm going to say add to the print mode. I can put a little bit comment. Maybe I'm going to say, well, this is customer ABC, because I want to have a reference that I know this. So now every time when I print an Epson Sure color 8600 magic solvent production front light, and I'm using this Pantone, it will be changed into this value. Yeah, so I'm going to make sure that I print correct. One other option here is if you have a measuring device, an i1 or Barberio or anything like that, I could actually say here, print the measurement swatch. I need to make sure that I have a device connected here. So I need to say add device, and I'm using an X-Rite i1 Pro 2. Because it needs to remember when I'm actually printing what device am I using to measure this. So now I've set up my X-Rite. I'm going to hit print. And now you see actually here it is a target of some different settings. Now when I actually print, I can simulate that by by dragging this down. So if I drag this down, this is exactly what happens when I print. And you see now it says waiting to measure. So now when I say measure my swatch, of course, if I have an I1 connected, I would be able to say measure. It gives me at the end a report of all the delta E's, the biggest delta E. And then in my swatch books, again, in this swatch book, I can then select which of the color I want to select. And that could be the one that I'm selecting, the one with the lowest delta E. So the one that is closest towards the original spot color. So basically on the same report here with this Pantone and okay. And the print measurement swatch, when you do this, you will get the report back and then you can click on the actual one that you want. Yeah, so that is a two-way of generating a better swatch. One is actually print it and visually look at it, maybe together with the customer, say, what do you think? Yeah, this is the one. Okay, let's take this one. And with the measurement, you're just saying, hey, I want to select that one that has the lowest delta E, so the lowest color difference from my actual output compared to my output. Now to actually see where you actually have that visual swatch, where is it saved? If I go here to setup and I go to here RIP configuration, I have a color matching table. And it's going to open up my my storage for my mode. Now, I did use it at my print mode defined. So if I go here, I need to select my print mode. I had this Epson. And I had maybe this one. You see? And now you see that I have, this is where it's stored. So again, when I print this on this one, with this media, production front lit white, it is actually changing the values. I can double click, I can see it. If I want to, I can still change it here. If it turns out that, oh yeah, just a little extra sign, that could be possible. I can do that here. Yeah. User defined is basically, let's delete this one. I could basically say here, add, and I could measure. If I have an I1, I can actually say, oh, please measure this color. You know, and it may be, you know, it turns out that it is a, it measures this value. We'll just call it test. So this is the actual color that I measured. Now what I want to do, if I want to bring that into my print mode, I can actually say convert. Now it's actually going to take my test. And at this time it converts it into CMYK orange, red, white data. Yeah. Now don't make the mistake that you have measured it in Onyx and now you take these values, CMYK values, into your Photoshop or whatever and name it this color. Because remember what happens if it's not a named color anymore, it will just be a CMYK value that goes in through my color management. So this is what in my document, if the color test is being used, this is the value that's going to take the test. This value of the named color test, I mean, sorry. And here, from here, I can also go direct, which is also in 21. Now the button was not there before, you had to go back in that one. System defined is only, it actually works the other way around. If I have used a color, my customer is using Coca-Cola Red. He always has mentioned that in his software, and I know that the perfect output for him is actually not. Let's have a look. see is let's call it like this. This is bright red. Now I can create the alias and I can say Coca-Cola. So in this case, if a file comes in with Coca-Cola, it prints with the value of Pantone Bright Red C. It's just it works the other way around. This one has the highest priority. So anything what you have in here, if you have something filled in here like Coca-Cola, it will use the setting from that. If you don't have anything here, it will go to system defined. Yeah, so it depends how you want to treat this. All right. Swatch books, color, recalibrate is a button here that you need to have again an I1. Where do I use it for? If I, for example, I have new ink, new print head, things like that. I would like to recalibrate. So especially for those devices where the print head is a fixed product. If you look at HP Latex, they already recalibrate inside the machine when you swap a print head. On other machines, the print head is fixed, and then you might want to do a recalibrate on the media that you have done. Basic, you are relinearizing the printer. You just want to see, hey, is it still, if I put 10% in, do I get 10% out? That's basically what you're trying to achieve there. Cut server. So the cut server is for a workflow where I've added my cutter workflow. So I have an input. It goes into my rip queue. It goes into I'm gonna print banners, vinyl, and then I want to go to my cutter and actually automatically cut my files. Now. The cut server is not driven by the dongle, so I can install the cut server anywhere I like, how often I like. So if I have 5 cutters, I can install 5 cut servers on different PCs and connect the cutter there, or I can have one cut server with multiple cutters. Yeah, it's everything is basically possible. Yeah, so if I remove my files here, let's have a look. Delete. I have already this, I set this one up, Suma S1. So if I look at that, I actually have selected my Suma S1. And in here, I'm basically defining the names of the cut path that is used. Now these are all defaults. This is what a lot of these manufacturers from cutters use, but I can also use my own name. Yeah, so if I want to say, hey, my customer is using some different word for a different thing, and maybe he's using magenta as a cut path. I don't know. Could be the case. So in that case, if you now have it as magenta, it will be a cut line. If you don't do it, anything that is built into magenta that has the name magenta will just be printed as the color that it is designed in. Yeah. So in here, I'm just saying, okay, anything that is called magenta something, magenta cut, magenta flex, magenta through, whatever, will be recognized now. Yeah. So click on OK. Okay. Now what important is in here, you will see that I have manage cutters. So I don't only have manage cutters, but I also have manage not only printers, but also cutters. So in cutters, you will have the list of all the Onyx cutters also. If you don't want to have the complete list appearing all the time, you just, clear all and only select the cutter that you have. So if I have for example, the new Suma S1, I can actually click on it, then I can go into configure. It tells me, okay, what barcode do we need to print? I want to use the Suma barcode, or then I want to use the Onyx barcode, depending if I'm in the Onyx workflow, I might want to use the Onyx barcode, or do you want to use the OPOS, the optical recognition from Suma itself to do this? And then there's different settings for the different menu, for the different types that you have. Here you might want to say, okay, the margin, do I want to have my cutting mark close to my image or further away? You can see I can lower this 27 millimeters. So that's the distance to my image. If it stays at the default in 44, you might have a width problem if you're just trying to print exact, at 1 meter 37, you want to print a certain size and it does not fit. That is maybe because the fact that your margins are there. I can do a repeating interval, so every 40 centimeter I have another line. Yeah, so that's possible. That's how you can define it. Some others, have here. If I look at this Roland, they hardly have any settings. If I look at zoomed, the big flatbed, I have way more settings that I can do. I can synchronize automatic with the zoomed also. But any other thing, look at let's have a look at a graphic cutter. Can also select a little bit more. Here's the flatbed, the FC 9000, where you can do different settings. That's how you can configure your cut server now. Once that has been created, if I now look at my file in here, see now I only have this Suma S1 because I have I did not select them anymore. Otherwise, I get this big list with all the cutters. And if I'm only having this Suma S1, then I'm fine. By printer is when you have devices like me making a Roland, like an CGV, where you want to print and cut. You just say here by printer. It will first be printed. Once it's ready with printed, it goes back and it will immediately cut afterwards. Yeah, so that's a different way of handling it. Now let's see, Suma S1. Now I'm going to open up my my cut file, which is always easy because I have one from Onyx that is a sample file. It's always easy to use that one. Samples. Oh, not this one. Cutting. Cut contour. And I'm going to make sure that I use the Suma S1 right away.
Bo teraz tak, zależy, jeżeli uszkodzili coś w środku, tam gdzie
Open up the file.
Ten nozzle z tą iglicą, bo oni może coś tam wepchnęli w środku i zrobili dziurę gdzieś. Tam są wszystko przewodami i to się łączy z pompką do robienia ciśnienia. Może być tak.
Okay. And I have a Suma S1. If I would actually look in my job editor.
Lewy czy prawy, tak?
A który kolor wyrzucili?
I actually have this option preview cut path. So when I remove that, you will see the difference where actually is a cut path. Yes or no.
Musieli coś na siłę.
Yeah, so that is a way that I can set that. Now remember that I actually have this setting here also where I set generate a nest outline cut path. So I can also turn that one on.
I może zaraz do nich zadzwonię.
And now what am I going to do here? I'm going to say 2 copies. Oh, let's do it like this. Let's see what happens there. Always funny. You see that? Conserve media. Very strange. So now if I'm actually gonna say,
mnie to się przydało tak naprawdę,
let's open the cut server.
Zainstalować Onyxa. A tak poza tym to musiałem...
Because there's nothing there yet, so now I also here need to say, okay, which cutter do I have? I have, let's say, I have a Suma F1 Series D. And in here, the little radar, I can configure it and I can say, okay, how do I want to cut? Is this connected over the network, or is it maybe a USB, or is it a cut to folder? Some people are using the Suma software to cut, so like the WinPlot or Go Produce now. In that case, you would actually say go cut to folder, set up the folder where you need to cut to that Suma folder, hit automatically cut new files, and the cut file, the PLT file for Suma will appear in that folder, and you can go from there. Yeah, so it depends on the workflow. Some people like to use the Suma, others say I want to have a workflow that is completely Onyx. So in that case, I'm just going to say here, for example, Suma USB. Here I see some settings. Let's close this one off. Now I'm saying, okay, I'm done. I'm going to hit print now. The minute that it creates the print now, it is also creating the cut server. Here you go. Here's my cut server file. So now you see here is this. I have a cut contour. I have a cut contour 2, 1. I have a cut contour 2. And I have my nest trim box that I've put on here in my queue there. Yeah. So in that way I can see right away. Now this file will be printed with the barcode, which you don't see in your preset, but it will be printed with a barcode. Some of the cutters will have a little mark to say where it starts. Some have a T and a B, like top and bottom, so the customer knows how to feed it. Suma has, for example, a 6 and a 9, where we know that the 6 is the top and the 9 is the bottom. If you want to rotate it, then here you can always, you can still rotate your file, your cut file, but be aware that you position it correctly. Now, of course, if you look at this one, if I look here I can see what these things are doing. So a layer default is doing a drag knife. Yeah, here's another one that's doing the drag knife. What you can do is actually make sure the tools that you have here on this particular device, these names, you also use those same names in your file. So it's easy to have cut name files with drag knife, ballpoint, pouncer, flex cut. It goes through the rip, it recognizes it, and it goes into my job here, and it recognizes it also right away. That's the most easiest way to have your workflow connected there in the same way. Now in here it's just saying I am now a normal Onyx cut file. If I say cut now, then the PLT file for the actual cutter will be generated, for Suma in this case will be generated, and then you're off to go. Now you can have multiple cutters. I can set up another cutter. If I have a flatbed cutter, I can also set that up here. And basically in Onyx you can decide where do I want to print, which printer, which cutter. And I can then in my quick set I can say, in here it's a Suma S1, but maybe I have something else also that I can connect towards. Yeah, so there's quite a lot of information on the Onyx website. Also, how customers would have to deal with cut files. What do they need to do? How do they need to set that up? So there's always on the onyxgfx.com good information with some documents. There's also a YouTube channel, so it's called Onyx TV. You will also see a lot of the small explanations of typical things like a swatch book or things like that, where you can see that. One last part is basically the color check. So you see that in here, configure color check. You'll also see a button here, color check, and it says I did not do anything, last measured, and it never expires. Nothing has done. If I click on this little icon here.
Obróconą ją widzicie tam?
It actually says these are my default settings, so I can print a baseline and I can do some Pantone sets. So in here I just have to decide, okay, which of the media is backlit or frontlit, and am I using a quick set, yes or no?
Wiesz, mała dziurka.
So in this case, I'm going to say here a baseline, and I'm going to print this one off. Now this file here is nothing else than a Fogra strip. Yeah, so it is 72 patches that I'm printing, and you see that it has an X-Rite i1 Pro 2. So again, if I simulate printing by dragging this file down, it's the same as the patch. Hold on. Come on. Yes. So I'm printing this one off, setting it to my printer. And you see now it stays up there. It doesn't drop down. So it stays up there because now what I want to do is I've printed this and now I want to measure this. So in this case, I will measure swatch. And then of course I get my details of my settings here. So the first time when you do this, it is actually generating a report with everything is okay. Because you have to start somewhere. There, you when you do this, the first thing that you do is make sure my printer's in good condition, media, everything is okay. I feel like this is the moment to do this. So I now can measure this. What will happen is that in this case, here it will say measured this and this date, and it will at a certain point expire. Then the next time when you expire, that's the first test where you're going to find out how much is the difference from A to B, from last week to today. Yeah, and you can see here if I go to configure color check, I can actually look at that Onyx weekly baseline. I cannot delete it because it's a fixed one, but I can view what we are doing with this one. That's a possibility to actually say, okay, it expires after 1 week. I can only turn this on and off. Now be aware that if it expires, you normally get like a green dot here to ready to go. If it expires, it becomes yellow. I can still print. Yeah, so it is not a limitation on the fact that you cannot print anymore. It is just a warning for the print operator. Hey, be aware, you are printing with no measurements involved. Yeah. If you have printed it and it becomes red, I can still print. It's only a more clear warning. Hey, be aware, you're now printing outside the spec because something is wrong. We measured it, something is wrong, and you still want to print. But you can. Now here you see those patches, the 72 patches, and here you also see the test that we're doing. So we're doing the max delta E of 3 on patch 1 because that's the paper white. We're doing on a max delta E of 5 on 72 patches. But you can define that also yourself. I can also go in here and say new, and basically say baseline 1. And now I'm going to say I'm going to do a baseline here. And now I'm going to add colors that I want. I can add those 75, or I can add named colors. I can add anything that I want. I can also say, okay, I can import. And import is then the setting that we had from Onyx. So for example, you see here, not Poster Shop, Thrive, which is called in PCT. And then I have definitions. I have Swatchbooks definitions. See here I have, for example, the weekly baseline. Now I can take my weekly baseline, but I can also add maybe a named color. Maybe I want to add a Pantone yellow C. I also want to add, because that is another color. Maybe I want to add, let's see, some more colors there, because these are ones that I use quite often. So now you see here the 72. I also have a few named colors. I can decide which test do I want to do. I want to make sure that I have a maximum delta of 3 on all patches. Select OK. Okay, and now I can actually print my own baseline. I can say print, and I hit print. And now actually my actual swatch is a little bit bigger because I've added these colors also on top of it. So I've added my own colors. So this is extremely easy when you're doing your baseline, your 72 patches. Let's add some colors from the customers, what the customer is using. So maybe he has 4 or 5, maybe 10 colors, or he wants to create a baseline with everything of his own color. Yeah, that is all possible regarding this. Okay. Resources, what I mentioned before, is that our website where you can find all that stuff, where you can find all which printers are supported, which cutters are supported. You will also see here cutters, where you can see, hey, is this cutter already supported, in which version it is supported. I think we saw, what was it, the 9000. Yeah, see the graph tag. So if you have version 12 or version 18, you see that this FC 9000 is not supported is supported from 1903 and up, and is not supported by version 18, for example. So that means a customer would have to upgrade their software. There's also a tool in here that is called the web key lookup, and the web key lookup is telling me what version the customer currently have. So you can just type in the key number. So if a customer asks me anything, hey, can I use this? Can I use this? My first question is always, what is the? Do you have a key number? Is this an existing installation? Do you have a key number? Okay, so then I look at the key number, and I can see here when I type this in, this is a PosterShop 1 limited. Okay, so it was a stock key, so maybe a dealer or a distributor had it on stock, and it was converted on the 20th of November 2019 into a PosterShop 1 limited. You see here all these printers are supported. That's maybe also a good thing to jump here. Let me go in here quickly, because I think I did not mention that. You see here these level printers. Yeah. So Thrive runs level 1, 2, and 3. PosterShop is running level 1 and 2, and Rip Center is only running level 1. You can, however, upgrade your Rip Center to be able to run a level 2 printer. You can also update a PosterShop to run a level 3 printer. But you have to look at the fact that a lot of times it becomes very expensive, and you better upgrade your existing software to a new version. Yeah? But that's important, because you will find here in this web key certain printers that you can and cannot drive. Yeah, so you will see here this customer has a version 19. He has 1 RIP, 1 printer. He has a PostScript HP wall art. Maybe he's driving an HP printer. He has 1 job editor. He has layout tools, and he has a profiler, but not ICC. So I can. He has the media manager, but not a profiling tool. Yeah. If you look at this one, for example, this is a bigger history. This one is
A,
actually
jeśli holder i płyta
this
główna,
customer
nie?
started somewhere
jest to.
here in evaluation, and then he ordered a Thrive 642.
12 miesięcy.
He had an advantage. An advantage is a way to upgrade from older versions to newer versions. And then he added an advantage gold, a printer. So now it is version 19, and he has 6 rips, 6 printers,
Jarosław oczywiście.
and 3 job editors. So this is a higher advanced customer with Thrive and multiple printers. So that's always a good tool to use. In here you would see at support you will have a knowledge base with certain information. It's always good about that antivirus, what I told you. That is also here, Onyx and antivirus. We have seen some key updates with problems after Windows 10 update, so you can run that one. Can't see my USB cutter, and then it says a little bit short explanation of what might be wrong. In here with my Onyx, you have also some documentation, product updates if there's a new patch or something. Here's a document about all these newer things in Onyx 21. And then I think if you actually go to
Damonsa.
You can actually go here and look for Onyx
sobotę i on
TV.
musi zrobić tą przedpłatę w piątek.
It's actually this one.
Wiesz do których case'ów?
So and then you have all kinds of little videos. You also have some older videos that might be interesting to watch. Here's something about specialty inks when you use them. Here's something about Onyx Go. That is a subscription model that we have. Customers can pay per month. Here's a video about color check. So there's a few videos on there that might be able to help you regarding problems that you have. Most of them are pretty short videos. Besides these are educational videos. You see cut server 1 hour, color management almost an hour, specialty inks, matching colors. So it's quite severe videos there for education. So you can sign on there, so you get an automatic notification if there's a new video online or things like that.
To się odezwę. Jeszcze potrzebuję z pół godziny, dobrze?
All right. I think I covered the most stuff of that. Do we have any questions? Or is everything okay? Was I loud and clear and you're now ready to go? All right, so great, clear. Feel free. I think most of you guys have been invited by Mark Heuner, but feel free to contact us with questions and stuff like that, and we're happy to help you. And, be aware of also there is a Onyx support in the Netherlands, so you can actually find them on our webpage, and you can always talk to them. They are ready to go, and they can actually go with a team viewer session or something like that to go online. I'll make sure that Mark Heuner will send out the recording, so you can always look back and look at it. And then for now, I would say thank you very much for your attention, and all the best.
Dziękować.
Jak pisał tą formę, to zaznacz Bartkowi, że rodzice są na stanie od drzewa.